Hey everyone, it's Dale Powers, and I'm again joined by Karl Lowe, and we're going to share a few things with you as you prepare to head into championships. A couple of things that I want to bring to your attention that might be a little bit different this year than in the past. And the first one that I want to talk about is traffic. There are a number of construction projects that may delay you moving from one place to another, depending upon the time of day that you may be traveling. We've gotten notifications of it. There are plenty of them out there publicly, but I would just say know where you're going, know how much time it should take you, and then give yourself an additional amount of time to accommodate three or four things. One, I think, is obviously traffic, and that you don't want to end up with your kids being hurried. You put them in the wrong frame of mind. I'm sure you're well prepared for that. But I also want you to take into consideration a little bit of extra time for things to do when you get to the show site you're going to. The first one that I want you to do is when you get there, I want you to leave yourself enough time to park, get your kids inside the building, and let them walk into the performance venue. See what it's going to be like. Look where the lights are. You're not going to be able to have your kids walk out onto the floor, but when they walk in, if they've never been to Cintas or Truist or even Nutter, when you walk in and you get to see it and you feel what the environment is, it does create those butterflies that I used to always say, I want them to experience them a few hours before they perform. So they have an idea of what they're going to feel like when they walk into that facility. That's really important. And while your kids are there, plan your walkthrough around a sound check so that as your kids are in that facility, they hear your music. And as they hear that music, it again gives them a sense of calm. It's their music. They're in the place where they're going to perform. And it will generate a little bit of excitement, maybe some anxiety, but things that you can then talk to them about as you prepare for going through. You won't be able to walk them through what the warm-up facilities are going to be like, but that should be a part of your process that's every day now. Warming up the same, you know what show warm-ups are like by now. We all have a set of warm-ups for shows, just like we do a set of warm-ups for rehearsal. You take care of all that stuff, but get them in the right frame of mind, and I think that will help. One of the things I also want to caution you about is rehearsal time. If you've rented rehearsal time through WGI, you've already been notified by Lyra. But every year, without fail, we get phone calls from people at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning saying, I'm at my rehearsal site and nobody's here. If you rent 2 hours of rehearsal from 7 to 9, don't expect to get into that building before 7 o'clock in the morning. You didn't rent time before 7 o'clock in the morning. Just be considerate of when you get there. Know that your time is when the door opens and you walk in at 7. On the back end, know that you need to be out by 9 o'clock so that the next group can get in and start their rehearsal time at the beginning of their block. It's just one of those things that I always want to remind people of, but I forget to. It's just that courtesy thing to think about. If you wanted additional time to stretch in hallways or do whatever, then in the future, rent a little bit more time. When you get to a show site and you finish and you conclude your round, I wanted to talk to you about the score posting part of it. When judges judge rounds, they have, evaluate those groups all the way in those rounds. Then they have to verify those numbers and they have to lock them. There always isn't enough time for everybody to do that and be totally comfortable with those numbers being locked. So I just want to tell you that just because your round ended 30 minutes ago doesn't mean that your scores are ready to be posted. It is possible, not in all cases, but it is possible that in some sites, scores for the first round might not be till after the second round, and scores for the third round might not be till after the fourth round. Just take that into consideration. Not everybody moves at exactly the same pace, and we want to make sure that they're comfortable with what they did. Those are just a few things that I want you to think about. You'll think of others. We might too, but I want you to think about those few things. I call those are the director's homework. Make sure that you plan all of those things out: meals, travel, walkthroughs, sound checks, the things that are really important. When you get to championships, even though you're using your own phone, don't ever go in there and assume that it's going to be the way that it's always sounded to you before. Speaking of sound checks, in many places, and I know in UD, John Capilupo does this a lot, because of what else may be going on, is you may do your sound check and it may be with a set of headphones on. And in many cases, that's how sound checks are going to be done. It's for you to listen to your music, not be adjusting volume levels. Those are all done by decibel meters during the competition itself. So just keep that in mind, that as you get there, go to the beginning, go to the middle, go to the end, make sure it's exactly the file you want to use. Make sure your device hooks up appropriately to what we're using to play music through, and then that you've heard the whole thing. So jumping back a little bit to speaking of scores, I want to turn this over to Karl, because he has a couple of things that he wants to bring to you, remind you about, that I think are really important. Karl?
Awesome, Dale. That's all really good advice and good words. Hey, listen, so the very first thing is dealing with the hard reality that at championships during those qualifying rounds, especially, all scores, not all, but at least in the 80 percentile, all those scores go down. And the bigger your round is, the bigger the contest, the more likely it is. So the scholastic A's, especially the independent A's, and then to a lesser degree, the opens, and then still happens, but to a lesser degree than opens, are the worlds. So you have to be prepared for that. And a lot of times, Brian talked about it at our last little interview we had. There's such an assumption that your score goes up X factor every single week, and that continues into championships. All of that was regionals only. Championships is a whole brand new contest with its only different set of codes. And so the easiest way to understand this is in the video that we produced last year. It was in that Essential Minute series for 2023, and it is minute number 8, and it's called Show Dynamics or Contest Dynamics, and it's very easy to understand. And because of the design of that premise, it explains it in a minute, which is lesser than the amount of time it takes for me to tell you about the video itself. So go straight to that. Dale, I think, is going to repost it on the, it's all still on the Educational Player in the YouTube page. Dale, I think, is going to put it on the Facebook page again, just as a quick reminder, and it is so easy. The next thing that I wanted to bring to or remind instructors of is that, in so much of the qualifying rounds, you're going to carry your kids into these big, huge arenas. They'll walk in, and then as they announce, WGI presents, they're going to look up, and in the audience, they'll see like 3 moms and 5 judges, and that may be it. So especially contrast that to the local experiences and then regional finals. You really have to be prepared for that, and it's a different mindset. And if you find that yours is a show that relies on visceral effects with audience response and that type of reaction, know that that will be limited. So now's a good time to start preparing for that and rehearsing in different ways to kind of imagine what that scenario might become. Of course, it gets better through the qualifying rounds. If you make it to semifinals, it's less of an issue. As you get to finals, you know exactly that that issue doesn't exist at all. And then the very last thing I wanted to bring up, we've talked about this a lot through the season, is if you've been listening to the interviews, is the instructor finding opportunities for growth, how it is you learn. And if you'll remember, a couple of years ago, I sent out something called a memory test, and I put them out like a couple of years in a row, and some were very long and extended, some were abbreviated, but they kind of did the memory test that Brian talked about. When you get to the parking lot or in the hot dog stand, and somebody says the name of a color guard, what they remember. It is how those memories kind of create a competitive asset. And there's no better way to learn what those series of assets are than to sit and watch, as an instructor, other people's work. And it's easy to think or confuse the fact that, oh, the worlds are the best that we have in our activity, and certainly they're the leading edge of everything it is we do. But strategy can be learned from people that don't necessarily have the resources of time and talent and money. And that the best lessons come through watching multiple rounds, not just a couple of groups, but multiple rounds of Scholastic A color guards, where you see people really invent and create programming that really showcases their performers, and then in some way masks different liabilities in lack of resources to carry them beyond what you would consider their competitive potential, until they're put in a context that seems to, really accelerate their pathway to success. And so I'm going to suggest that everybody, instructors, you have to plan now Do not be the one that's responsible for taking your performers to the mall to go to whatever Chili's and all those other things and shopping and time killers. But you be the one that sits yourself down in the stands and take some me time and let your boosters and your parents and your directors know that that's an investment in their future as much as it is yours. And then if you really want to do some good, you get those performers into those other rounds. It can be even people not in their class. Get them to watch some of those other prelims or semifinals and be great supporters and good color guard citizens. More importantly, be there to cheer on other people. It really builds a sense of community, and then give them that assignment to meet people that they wouldn't otherwise meet. There is no experience like championships that exist anywhere else in the world. In this situation, you are able to see the most concentrated efforts in what it is we do, and to ignore that and to think that that is less important than going to dinner somewhere at the mall. I'm sorry, I jokingly think the mall has become our cultural center when we all meet together, when we have like 5 facilities that are hosting the best of what it is we do. Make smart choices, build that community, but more importantly, you're going to get the momentum going for next year. And that's really an opportunity that some of us forget to take in these situations. That's about it. I'm super excited to see everything, though. It's been a great year.
Yeah, no, and the thing that's exciting about championships, it is the one and only time that you get a direct comparison with everybody in the country.
Yeah.
So it's important that you remember that the score is not as important as knowing that you are being compared against 40, 30, 40, 50, 80, 100 plus people in the same class. And that's what you keep in the back of your mind of, where do I stand in relationship to everybody else? I'm really excited. We're a couple of weeks away. It's really, it's a couple of weeks from yesterday.
Yep.
So I know everybody's heading into their circuit championships and all of that is exciting. But when you get to Dayton, it's a different set of nerves. So prepare yourselves and them as much as you can and get ready for a wonderful championships.
Absolutely.
With that, I'm going to say thank you all very much. We'll see you soon. Karl, thank you again for all of our tapes this year. Pay attention. There's another one going to be coming next week. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a hint, but get ready. Karl's going to do one with Curtis, and it'll be interesting and fun. So thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you all soon. Bye.
Bye. Be brilliant.